Welcome to Miss Sam's World. Enjoy the show. Sam's Chit Chat. As you know, it's me, Miss Sam, me, Cherry,
and me, Smooch.
and today we have with us.
My name is Hatcher Sawyer.
Cool. That's a cool background you have.
Definitely.
I like the purple.
Thank you. Purple's my favorite color.
Mine too.
Yeah, because that's you.
Yeah. That's right. That is
right. How'd you know you want to be an author?
How did I know? Well, books have always been a big part of my life. I grew up reading them. I was reading chapter books before I even went into elementary school around 3 or 4 years old. My reading and writing skills have always been pretty advanced. It's kind of the one thing that I'm really, really good at. Everybody has their one thing that they're really, really good at. Literature just always ended up being mine. I could read and write at a collegiate level before I left elementary school, and I kind of carried that with me all the way up to college. I did not go to college the first time to be a professional in literature. I say the first time because I've attempted college twice. Now, my first time around in college, I enrolled in an English class where one of our first assignments was to write a short story of about 200 words. After I did the assignment, a couple days later, my professor pulled me aside, had me stay after class, and told me that what I wrote was actually good. She used the word actually. That's kind of what tipped me off to maybe, hey, maybe she's onto something. She made me go home and turn that 200 words into 2,000 words. And the next day I brought her back 2,000 words. And that was another thing that surprised her, that I went home, wrote 2,000 words, and then came back the next day. She'd never really seen a student like me. We went back and forth like this for a little while until those 2,000 words turned into 10,000, turned into 20,000, and then eventually turned into my first novel when I was 17. And I think that's about where it clicked for me. I kind of had a moment where I realized, okay, so this is my talent. This is my thing that I'm really, really good at, my one thing.
Yeah, you were. Wow. So she really inspired you too, also to keep going, right?
I suppose so. I suppose she was a big part of the process of finding what I was meant to do. I haven't talked to her in a very long time. She's probably not teaching anymore. She was in her 60s when I was 17, and that was a long time ago.
Huh. Well, thank goodness you met her.
Definitely. Who was your favorite author growing up?
Growing up, I was an R.L. Stine kid. I loved Goosebumps. I've still got a nearly complete set of the original Goosebumps series. I think I'm only missing two books. But R.L. Stine was a big, big influence on me. I had phases later on in life, John Green, Bret Easton Ellis, figures like that, but I never really lost that love for Goosebumps. I carried that with me all the way to high school, all the way through college, and now into adulthood. I still crack open one of those books every once in a while.
She always liked Slappy.
Slappy the Dummy. They made three. They're so popular, he had to write 3 books.
Yeah.
Truly. What inspired your the 5D industry phrase you're very well known for?
Well, there are a lot of problems with this industry. Somewhere along the way, it became more about profiteering, more about mass marketing than books, than literature. I have been doing this, writing, trying to publish for about 13 years. In that time, I have had many, many, many setbacks, very discomforting setbacks, attempts to manipulate what I have written, attempts to just change my entire identity around marketability. You look to these companies, they're called the Big Five. Do you know the Big Five?
I know one is Penguin House, but I'm not really sure about the others.
That is Hatchet, Macmillan, Simon Schuster, HarperCollins, and Penguin Random House. These five companies control about 80% of the book trade in the United States, and that is not to mention how far they go globally. This is a serious problem to anybody who wants to make their living in the literary arts. They get to control everything, they get to capitalize on everything.
Mm.
This restricts artistic freedom to the point where literature is slowly but surely not even being recognized as an art form anymore, more of a product. And so my goal is to have a career that is not driven by marketability or that sort of thing, marketability or trends, uh, mass manipulation, but rather based on the traditional publishing ethics that we haven't seen for a very long time, probably since the invention of the internet.
Hmm. Wow.
Because then it causes less people to be able to, and ends up with us probably losing thousands of classics just from them rejecting them in original scripting.
Yeah.
Something like that, when you can manipulate the manuscripts to only publish based on what you believe will sell ridiculously, you kind of crush the industry in that sense. Though I think it's about 4 million at this point. 4 million new novels are published just about every year. Most of them don't sell any more than 5,000 copies. The ones that do sell over 5,000 copies usually don't get that way naturally. They usually don't work their way up the sales charts based off of the quality of the book. Usually there's some outside factors, some marketing team behind all of it that spent a lot of money to later on make even more money. So these books are being published. Books are still being published. It's just there's no more natural selection in the market.
Because I remember, like, with certain ones, they would buy the stock to look up the book, like, storing in the warehouse and be like, yeah, it's top selling.
Sure. I mean, the New York Times bestseller list in and of itself is a complete joke, but that's a conversation for another day. You don't even want to open that. Right now, we'll be here all night.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite library memory?
I do. When I was little, elementary school age, maybe 7 or 8 years old, I would beg my mother to bring me to the library twice, 3 times a week, really whenever she was passing by. And I happened to be in the car. There was a woman there. Her name was Sharon. She's probably long gone by now. She was in her 60s when I was 7 or 8 years old. So she is long since retired, I bet. But I would run into the library. I'd go straight to her desk. Her and I would spend some time picking out a book. She'd send me home and we'd repeat the process over and over again. I wonder a lot where Sharon is now. I'm certain she's happy she got to work around books for her entire life.
What's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear. I'll give you my second place fear. I think I'm going to go as long as I can in my career without revealing what my biggest fear is. But number two, that would be heights. I'm not very good with heights. My wife and I, we travel a lot. And last year we went to both Seattle and Toronto. And there are landmark buildings in both of those cities that involve riding a very, very tall elevator up to the top of a tower, the Space Needle and the CN Tower. I didn't do so well on either of them. I was very afraid to approach the windows and look down. to the same degree, I'm also not a big fan of bridges, especially driving over them. I get very nervous when I drive over bridges. My number one
Yeah.
fear, though, it's very, very unusual. I know someday it will be discovered, but I'm going to put that day off for as long as I can.
No worries. She's afraid of escalators. I'm afraid of tunnels.
Okay, next question. Opinion on Disney.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I was saying before she has a fear of before we start that conversation, opinion on Disney.
My opinion on, well, it's not positive. Uh, I put out a reel last week where I compared Disney to a drug dealer. Uh, am I allowed to use the phrase drug dealer on?
I don't know.
I'm sure you are.
I have no idea.
Let's let it rip. I compared Disney to a drug dealer. The goal of both Disney and drug dealers is to elicit as much of a dopamine reaction as possible from their target audience through synthetic manipulation of their product. And they push their product as hard as they can to get people, in a sense, addicted. I am certain everybody knows at least one. I'm certain you know somebody who calls themselves a Disney addict.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows at least one. Everybody knows at least one Disney addict. It's not so much an endearing title anymore when their whole goal is to modify the cognitive experience as much as possible when you lean into one of their products. They do get people addicted. They do this by targeting comfortable childhood memories and creating carbon copies of absolutely everything they put out. You can layer together their movies and see straight through them because they're all, just the same. It's the same story being told to us over and over again. They just swap out the characters a little. Star Wars is a 20 movie, 10 television show franchise now. And why? Because it's comfortable, because it doesn't challenge people, because there's no need to think when you watch one of these movies. Very similar to how there's no need to be challenged or no need to think when you are taking drugs.
True.
Let's just throw in the live action, but not in the way of stirring that whole entire probably 9-hour rabbit hole.
There's a lot of those.
Do you have a favorite Goosebumps book?
I do. It's called Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns. It's my favorite because when I was a kid, my biggest fear was aliens, space aliens. I saw the movie Signs. Have you ever seen Signs?
Mm-hmm.
Old M. Night Shyamalan movie about an alien invasion and a family on a farm trying to survive it. Now, that movie really, really frightened me when I was a kid and I saw it. And I was afraid of aliens for so long. I every time I went to the library, I researched alien-related material, space alien-related material. And it was the first Goosebumps book that I came across that had something to do with aliens. And so I just kind of latched onto it and I read it 50 times as a kid over and over again, just because I loved the big reveal. And I guess I took that with me into adulthood as well. So Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns remains my favorite Goosebumps book.
Cool.
How do you know you want to make your video content when it comes to books?
Well, books are what I know, but as to why I decided to make my Instagram in the first place, my wife had to convince me. My wife and I, we've been together for almost 4 years now. And I think it took her all of 1 week to start trying to convince me to create social media based around, being an author, around literature. And it took her about 3 years of marriage to wear me down to the point where I was willing to try it. I never thought it would work out. I never thought anyone would care what I have to say or anything like that. But here we are. I think I just crossed 2,000 followers today in the span of
Nice.
a month.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you. They like my voice. That's what they say. They like my voice a lot.
Cool.
It's the moneymaker.
Speaking of her, how did you guys meet? And also, does she like horror?
We met on an app. It was specifically Hinge. I think that was the one. I'm not sure. The two of us only had the dating app for like 2 days apiece. Her friends had to convince her to get it. My friends had to convince me to get it, much like the Instagram thing. I didn't think it would work. She didn't think it would work, but we
Ta-da.
we matched. We went out on one date. Uh, and then by our second date, we kind of just knew. By our second date, we both deleted our accounts and just kind of linked, you know. Since then, we have not really spent very much time apart from each other, except for she was in China for a month. But other than that, no, we since that second date, we haven't been together or we haven't been apart for longer than maybe a couple days at a time. Uh, and
Nice.
she does like horror now. She didn't really when I first met her, or rather, she had never really been exposed to horror when I first met her. She's from China, and they don't have a very big horror culture there. This is interesting. In China, there's an actual law that bans film directors from writing movies about ghosts. If you're going to write a ghost movie in China, legally, the movie must end with the revelation that there were no real ghosts the whole time and that it was just people pretending to be ghosts. Otherwise, a film director could go to jail. So in China, there's not a big horror culture. But after she met me and saw, how much I loved the genre, she took to it pretty quickly. And now it's her second favorite genre. She's big on action movies, but horror movies are her number two. And I say movies because she doesn't read. She's not much of a reader.
Okay. Wow. That's crazy that they can't have ghosts in the movies there.
Shirley,
Interesting.
what's your favorite type of cat?
Have you ever seen a Russian blue?
Yeah.
No, they're very pretty. They're gray and they have more of like a stocky sort of build, especially the males. But they're just pure gray, and I think that's the best looking color on a cat.
Ooh. We had a gray cat once.
It might have been a Russian blue.
I think maybe.
Hilariously enough, my next question kind of links back to one of the other ones. Do you think it's more likely within 3 steps of going into a bookstore, you're more likely to see, I'm going to use for this example, a Penguin Random House book or a window?
Your chances of seeing a book from Penguin Random House are probably exceptionally higher than anything else. You will likely see at Penguin Random House through the window before you even enter the shop. Uh, they have their hands in everything. The way that I put it was if you go to a bookstore with a dart and you just throw it in any direction, any random direction, it will probably stick into a book that Penguin Random House has had a hand in the distribution of. They're everywhere. They make $4 billion a year, millions and millions. I think 700 million titles published annually. They operate in 20 countries. They're everywhere. They're like
Wow.
Amazon or, like Meta, but with books rather than tech or than sales.
Hmm.
What do you think should be done about the current literacy rate?
Well, it's mainly a budget issue. Uh, when you are not interviewing, do you have a job?
Yes.
Would you say that the quality of the work that you're willing to provide is based upon how much you are paid. Like if your boss just walked in tomorrow and said, you're going to make half as much starting now, you probably wouldn't work as hard, right?
Most likely.
It's the same with teachers. You know, they're people, they're professionals who want to do a job. And it is a noble profession, but nobility has its limits when you have to DoorDash for 20 hours a week just to break even and buy your own supplies for your classes. So it's a budget issue. If we paid teachers more, they would be more incentivized to perform better in classrooms. Now, there are many, many teachers out there who, though they are not getting paid very much, still go above and beyond in their classrooms, teaching kids to read, trying to get them to read novels and write more comprehensively. And that leads to another problem, whereas when the students go home, there's no more teacher. There's no more teacher helping them to read. So in the house with their parents, that's where I think it's most important to have kids reading. You know, if there's books in the house, it's been proven. If there are books in the house, kids will read. But I feel like a lot of parents nowadays rely heavily on the iPads and the smart TVs and that sort of thing, and that really guts a kid's attention span, and therefore they will not be able to pick up a book and start reading, and then they grow up into an adult who can't pick up a book and start reading, and the cycle just keeps going round and round. These are topics that I explored in my own novel. You know, these problems that kids have based on technology and based on their parents' decisions. So pay the teachers more, give the schools proper funding,
Yeah.
read with your kids. Those are the biggest things, really.
Definitely.
Most definitely. What's your favorite horror host?
Horror host, that era kind of passed me by. You know, I'm trying to think about that. Elvira comes to mind. She's the most famous, definitely.
Yes, yes.
But I was born kind of after the era of the host. I mean, I know who Svengoolie is. I know who what is her name? Karen Cioli, Saturday Night Dead. I know who she is, but I didn't grow up
You
watching.
didn't know that? No.
I didn't grow up watching those programs. You know, I'm not that old.
Were you surprised when you had asked the audience to send in cat pictures for the end of videos? Or were you surprised like how many you got?
Yes, I was expecting them to. So when I put out that reel asking for people to send in pictures of their cats so I could include them in the end of my reels, when that big bell plays, my signature bell, I was expecting maybe 15, 20, 30 at the absolute most, but I think I ended up getting over 100. People love their cats, you know, and I'm happy to do it. I'm glad to connect with my audience, my followers, because I know that someday I won't be able to. If I am successful and I do reach my maximum goal of 55,000 followers, I know that I will not be able to connect with them on the same level that I do now. So I want to savor it, and doing the cat pictures is a good way to savor that, to hold on to this connection for as long as I can.
What
Nice.
what can you tell us about the inspo or anything for your book God of the Goldfish?
Well, we talked about it a bit earlier, God of the Goldfish, where all that came from. We talked about education, students, modern students. They have big, big problems, big challenges ahead of them. God of the Goldfish is all about modern children, how they solve their problems, how they live their lives. A while ago, I noticed a trend on YouTube where teachers were talking about how disruptive and misbehaved their students were. They're always on their phones. They're finding it very hard to pay attention. And I watched a lot of these videos. I watched hours and hours and hours worth of these videos. They talked about conflicting opinions on what's causing this, conflicting opinions on how to solve this problem. But most of all, they were talking about who was to blame. And I kept thinking of that question. The kids are not performing as well as they could be, much less than they used to. And it's only getting worse. And I thought, who is to blame here? I thought about it for a while, and I think I came up with a good answer, a conclusive answer as to who is to blame for the problems of modern grade school children. That was my inspiration. I wanted to tell a story from the perspective of the children, from the perspective of their world, and talk about who fails them because they're children, you know. We complain about, oh, the kids aren't doing well, the kids are misbehaving. They're kids, they're blank slates. They rely on the adults in their life. And that thought, all this thinking was my inspiration for God of the Goldfish.
Cool.
Unless Snoocher here wants to add something, hopefully it hasn't sounded rushed. We are at our last two questions.
Question. How many novels have you written?
That is an interesting question. Total, I have written 17.
Wow.
Yeah. However, the first 16 of them, the public will never see them. A while ago, I decided to completely restart my career, just start from ground zero or square one and build up from there with this new attitude to seek traditional publishing and, with building an audience on Instagram. So I'm at square one here, and now I consider God of the Goldfish to be my one and only novel, but there are 16 manuscripts sitting on my computer, full novels that might get deleted very soon. But firm answer, 17.
But it still took all your time to write all those.
I consider it practice.
Okay. Okay.
Good practice.
Got it.
Hopefully this hasn't sounded rushed, but unless Smooch has any other questions,
No.
we are now at our last two questions. Advice for writers getting their start.
People don't really like when I say this, but my best advice for a writer might be to consider doing something else. Yeah, I know. Bo Burnham. Do you know who Bo Burnham is?
Yes.
He has a similar philosophy where what he does is he tries to convince people who want to do what he does to quit. Good advice, but I try to be a little softer. If you want to be a writer, try something else other than writing novels. I don't say that to discourage anyone from following their dreams. I say it as a word of warning. It's tough. It's not just a hobby. To get to a proficient level, it takes years of study, practice, hours logged, education. To be a good writer, you have to be consistently reading and constantly writing. And I see a lot of people who say that they want to be writers and they're not really putting in any true work. Not to mention, I see a lot of people who want to be writers who bar themselves from criticism. They don't take constructive criticism very well, or criticism at all. Excuse me. That's good advice for somebody who is insisting that they want to be a writer. You have to learn to take criticism, not just constructive criticism, but you have to be willing to be insulted over and over and over again. Learn to take nasty criticism. If you want to be a writer, you should be able to give somebody a manuscript, have them read it, and then have them give it back to you and tell you that it would best serve its purpose as firelighter, and then keep going.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Not cool.
Yeah. Our last question, because we still can't get the audio to work for YouTube, is I'm still trying, I promise. Sure you are. Where can we find you online?
I am only on Instagram. I've been bouncing around some ideas for a YouTube channel, but for now, I'm very happy on Instagram. I like the results. I like my followers. I like them a lot. I check in on them all the time. I look through their profiles. I watch their stories. I like to see what they're doing.
Oh, that's
They're,
cool.
they're some interesting people. I knew that I would attract interesting people.
Mhm.
Uh, and you know, it's not about trying to get as many people as possible. I'd rather have a dedicated 55,000 than a disinterested 55 million. So I'm not really trying to cast a wide net with social media. I don't do TikTok. I don't have oh, what did that doofus rename it to? X, used to be Twitter.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I don't have any of that. Just Instagram. Nice and localized. That's it. I'm not a big social media guy. Just Instagram.
Cool. There. We will find you there.
She already did, technically.
Yes.
We want to thank you for being on the Miss Hands Chit Chat.
Thank you.
Bye.
Having me. Thank you very much.
You got a cool vibe. We like it.